This show is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. The content on this show is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such condition.
This is Rooted in Healing with Dr. Beth Claxton, exploring the science of functional medicine and the power of healing from within. Breathe in. Breathe out. And now your host, Dr. Beth Claxton.
Welcome to Rooted in Healing. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm your host, Dr. Beth Claxton. I am a medical doctor, board certified in obstetrics and gynecology, and certified in functional medicine through the Institute for Functional Medicine. And I wanted to start off talking about why I'm putting this show on. There are so many people that I see every day in my practice who are not getting the answers that they want from the practitioners that they're seeing. And my message is to keep looking. There's so many different kinds of offerings out there, and I wanted you to be aware of everything that's out there. And about this episode, today we're speaking with Renee Fitton. Renee is a distinguished dietitian and entrepreneur, and she actually studied under Walter Longo at the Longevity Institute in California. Dr. Longo also has a lab in Milan, Italy, where he studies longevity, and he is the one who created the fasting mimicking diet, and we're going to dig into that today. I was super excited that Renee happens to be in Sedona this week, and she agreed to do this interview live at the studio. I think everyone's going to really love this interview and learn so much. And before that, we're going to go for a quick break. You're listening to KAZM 106.5 FM, 780 AM, Mellow Mountain Radio.
For more information on Dr. Beth Claxton, visit bethclaxtonmd.com. And now, more Rooted in Healing with Dr. Beth Claxton.
Welcome back to the show. We have with us today live in studio Renee Fitton. And Renee is a longevity dietitian and the director of education at Prolon and L Nutra, the makers of Prolon. With a master's in longevity nutrition, she has helped thousands of individuals and healthcare providers harness the power of nutrition for longevity. Renee hosts the Longevity Lab webinar series and is a trusted voice on nutrition panels, podcasts, and wellness summits. Known for translating cutting-edge science into simple, actionable strategies, she is passionate about helping people live better, longer. And for anyone who follows the longevity science, she actually did receive her master's from USC and studied with Dr. Walter Longo and also studied at his lab in Genoa, Italy. And I'm so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. It is such a pleasure and lovely to be in Sedona, Arizona as well.
Yeah, we're having hot weather and she likes it.
I love it. I love it. As a Canadian, it's a nice change of pace.
So you are in longevity, and I want to bring people up to speed about fasting mimicking diet. So how does longevity and the fasting mimicking diet go together?
So in many, many ways, in fact. So longevity is, honestly, it really should be considered more of a umbrella term because it takes into consideration so many things and far more than just nutrition alone, but even within the umbrella of nutrition, many things as well. And the fasting mimicking diet is able to support within that nutrition umbrella in a lot of different ways, through meal timing, also through something called autophagy or deep cellular cleanup, and I'm sure we'll dig into that in more detail. There's also a lot of really incredible research in biological age. So this is the age that our body behaves, not just that number on your birth certificate. And so because with fasting mimicking, you are really allowing your body to take the reins and do a lot of really great cleanup and repair. It's tackling longevity through so many different avenues and really able to make a really big impact.
Awesome. So what I'd like to parse out now is, how is a prolonged fast different from intermittent fasting and different from traditional fasting?
Yeah, I love this question, because I think when people think about fasting, they think, well, probably not going to eat anything, just drink water for about 16 to 18 hours. That's, I think, the most common type of fasting that we hear about today. And there are a lot of different ways to fast, actually, and they all have slightly different benefits and results and reasons why somebody would do it. So that original, or that more common type of fasting, that 16, 18 hours of water only fasting, is generally what we call intermittent fasting. And with that, we see some results that are usually for weight loss or for metabolic health. So maybe supporting people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes and supporting regulating their sugar, their blood sugar levels and things like that. There's some benefit there for sure. But once we let our body go for quite a bit longer, now I'm talking for at least about 3 days of fasting, the body actually turns on some more levers that support health and longevity. And some of those levers include autophagy. So I mentioned that deep cellular cleanup. I like to think of autophagy, what it literally means is self-eating, but I like to think of it like a vacuum cleaner for our cells, or spring cleaning. And that really requires you to stay in a fasted state for at least about 3 days to really ramp that up and make it a significant level of cleanup. And so you can imagine that a lot of people that are doing this every day, 16, 18 hour fasting, they may be getting some of that metabolic benefit, but they're never really getting that deep cellular benefit. Now, we also mentioned fasting mimicking, and fasting mimicking can be done both in this shorter fast, so maybe for 16 hours or for 24 hours, but we really love using it for these prolonged fasts, because those are the toughest ones to do, certainly with water only. And with fasting mimicking, we add food. So you get to get the benefits of water only fasting, but with food.
That's so interesting. So the question that was coming up for me was, a lot of people think that doing this intermittent fasting, the 16 to 18 hours of fasting, is a healthy thing to do every day. And you and I were both at the Institute for Functional Medicine annual international conference a couple weekends ago, and Dr. Walter Longo was speaking, and he said this actually isn't so great. And I've seen it myself and my patients, how their DHEA levels start to go down, indicating stress, and their insulin levels actually can start to go up, and their hemoglobin A1C, which is the marker for diabetes, actually starts to go up from the stress that this is causing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the beauty of fasting, and the reason why it can offer so many great benefits, is because of the stress that it induces in our body. And when done for short periods of time, we call this hormetic stress or positive stress. And that stress can lead to our body to shift and to make some changes. But if we do this all of the time, too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. And so that's why when we look at doing everyday fasting, the recommendation for a generally healthy person is not to go over about 12 to 13 hours and generally at most 14. And when we look at individuals who do need to possibly lose weight and get some of those metabolic benefits, that's where we might look at that 14, maybe 15, and at most 16. But Dr. Walter Longo will generally cap it at that 14-hour mark. And that's because at 12, that's when our body has used up most of our stored sugar, and it will shift to using our fat for fuel. And there's a lot of really good benefit for that. But if we do that too long, then we induce a little bit too much of that stress. So if you go for 12, 13, 14, you can still get some of that benefit without going so much into the stress. So again, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. And that's something that we have to remember even with fasting.
Yes. And if you think about the way we used to live when we were hunter-gatherers, there would be times that we didn't have much food, and that would be like a 12 or 16, 18-hour fast. And then there were times where food was plenty. So keeping the body guessing really helps build that resilience that we're looking for. That's the end goal, is this resilience to whatever comes its way, it's ready to take it on.
Absolutely. I love thinking about how the benefits of fasting evolved and looking all the way back to our early ancestry and thinking, yeah, food wasn't always around. And in fact, our body had to find ways to take advantage of these times where food wasn't plentiful and turn that into a positive as best that it could. Of course, protect the body as best that it could. But also, if there were these periods of famine for a longer period of time, take advantage of that time for repair and shift the body from grow, build, reproduce to repair, rejuvenate, restore. And that's why we see when we hit these longer 3, 4, 5 day fasts that the body is able to do that switch. And that's this evolution that came from these periods where we didn't have as much food. And so we really should, in today's world, even though we aren't forced into these moments of longer fasts, still remember that our body has that memory and still wants to, take advantage of those periods to go into this cleanup.
And I think also what's important to know is in ancient times, there were many religions. Actually, in every religion, fasting is a part of the religion. And I remember going to a Catholic school, the way that they fasted is they ate fish on Fridays, which really wasn't any different than any other day. But when you look at Ramadan and the fasting that happens during Lent and probably other religions that I don't even know of, there was fasting. And so this is a way even to bring this into the fasting into our modern day spirituality.
Absolutely. I like to think that even though they didn't have the science of fasting back then and maybe didn't understand everything that was going on physiologically in the body, what they did see was how the body behaved and how it reacted to a fast. And what happens when we go into these fasts and we start using fat for fuel, what our body does is it produces something called ketones. And those ketones our brain loves using ketones for fuel. It doesn't need to do it all the time. In fact, it also loves using sugar for fuel. But when you just give it a little bit of that switch every now and again, when it uses those ketones for fuel, it also often offers kind of this mental clarity. And I like to think that when we think about using fasting in those for religious reasons, it's about feeling that mental clarity, maybe feeling more connected to God or to that spirituality when you have that kind of fog lifted. So it's kind of cool knowing today everything that we know and trying to connect it to the reasons why maybe it was used in the past. Of course, just the restriction and, the sacrifice and taking away something for a period of time also has a piece to do with that. But I like to think of it also as that connectivity.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go right into the fasting mimicking diet. Let's talk more about it, because I think we've talked about fasting and the history of it. So what exactly is the fasting mimicking diet? How can you have food and fast?
Absolutely. So this is a great question. And first, let's just talk about why this even exists, right? Why do we need to have fasting with food? Now, of course, we talked about this stress that fasting causes on our body. And when we add food, it can support in reducing that. So it becomes a safer alternative. It certainly is easier. I don't think any of the listeners will disagree that if we can offer you a nice three meals a day plus snacks, it's a lot more appealing than water only for 5 days. But on top of that, we also see things like muscle protection and other areas that just add an extra layer of a win when we do fasting with food. But that inevitably brings up the question, how the heck can you fast with food? The whole definition of fasting is that you don't eat. But I like to remind people that is our dictionary definition. it is very obvious for us to say, okay, if we're not eating, then we're fasting. And that's, easy for us to throw in our dictionary. But our cells aren't reading that same dictionary. They actually came up with their own definition for fasting. And Dr. Walter Longo, about 30 years ago now, nearly, went to uncover what our cells' definition was. And he figured it out. And it turns out that our cells, essentially, I like to think of them like having alarm bells on the cellular surface and kind of like 007 lasers looking for nutrients and in specific amounts. And it turns out that you can have certain nutrients in certain amounts and also paired very carefully where they live below the radars. They are the 007 going underneath those lasers. And it allows your body to still continue into this fasted state, even though you're having some nutrients. And only when you have enough nutrients in the right type, in the right amount, that surpass that threshold, that's when your body says, okay, we're out of a fasted state and it's time to grow. But it has to reach that threshold. So fasting mimicking very carefully chooses the right foods, right pairing, right amounts, so that you can have something without triggering those alarms.
So people are probably wondering, like, what do you eat? How do I get this? Where's the list? And I wanted to take this moment to say, like, I am doing the fasting mimicking diet right now, and I have a box that the company called Prolon sent, and inside the box are 5 smaller boxes, and in each box is what you eat that day. And it's super easy. I don't have to think about food this week, and it's really nice.
Absolutely. I will say without fail that is what people appreciate the most, is the simplicity. And, you on top of letting your body get a rest and to go into restoration, you also let your mind take a break from, oh, what am I going to have for breakfast? Oh, and now what am I going to have for dinner? So it really is a full body mind reset for those 5 days. And it really is made easy. And for any listeners wondering, what is in the box? What's in the box? Well, you usually will start your day with a nut-based bar. Then you'll transition to snacks like olives or crackers. And then you get plant-based soups for lunch and for dinner. You even get an evening chocolate crisp. So, people are always surprised, I think, to hear not only are you getting food, but you're getting solid food, and you're getting quite a bit of it.
Mm-hmm. The olives are delicious.
Even olives haters will tell me that they love those olives. I was converted to an olive lover by the Prolon olives. So
it's because that's all you have to eat.
Yeah. When you're a little bit hungry, you'll be surprised what tastes delicious.
Actually, I even lick the wrapper of the bars because, like, oh, there's that little bitty nugget of chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a lot of people will add extra water to their soup just so that they can extend it a little bit longer. But in reality, I've done long water fasts just to try them out, and I've done the fasting mimicking diet, and it is a drastic difference in terms of hunger. So you'll still feel a little bit because we still have to live below those sensors, so we still have to reduce it, but not so much that you're starving, for sure. What do you think? I mean, you're doing it as we speak.
Right. I'm not naive to fasting either. I started off with the Master Cleanse, and that kind of started driving me crazy. And then I found Panchakarma, Ayurvedic detoxing. And this actually feels a lot like that because you have the mental break of what am I going to eat? Because with Panchakarma, you make the khichdi and you're done for the day. And then I've also done the 3-6-9 medical medium detox, which was a lot of trips to the grocery store and a lot of chopping and a lot of eating fibrous foods.
Yeah.
They were all delicious. I really like this because there's that detox aspect of it where your brain gets to detox also. You get to deeply relax and rest and nourish your body other ways.
Absolutely. I think the other reason that this fast stands out to me amongst all of the others is that it is so clinically validated too. So there's now over 40 clinical trials across different disease states, healthy individuals across the board. I mean, you name your question, there's a lot of answers out there now available for fasting mimicking specifically, and specifically these kits designed by the L-Nutra family. So Prolon being the division for generally healthy individuals looking to support longevity, but now even they've come out with a company called L-Nutra Health that supports individuals looking for diabetes remission, type 1 and type 2 are admitted into the program. We see pre-diabetes supported here, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, even weight management, all supported within that division with physician support, dietitian support, labs, all the extra bells and whistles to support with adherence and safety. So, it really is very, very carefully and scientifically thought out and now very well supported for a large audience.
I want to pick out the type 1 diabetes.
Yeah.
Dr. Longo was talking about that at the conference, that they have put mice on this diet, and when the mice who did not have islet cells working in their pancreas were put on this diet, they actually started to see the islet cells of the pancreas regenerate.
Yes, it is
so amazing.
So amazing. And actually there's now, so that was done in mice models, which we always have to, give that. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. There's now trials being done in pediatric cases to see how it might be helpful in humans. So we're awaiting that data, but there's a lot of research still going on today. We just keep seeing stuff coming out. Just actually 2 months ago, we saw one of my favorite regeneration trials come out because it was done in humans and showed that with the fasting mimicking diet, there was a 6 times greater improvement in the sense of taste and smell. And that is seen even despite considering that weight loss. Of course, there was weight loss during this protocol. And yes, weight loss does help support an improved ability of chemosensory properties or the ability to taste and smell. But they even considered that in this study, took that out, and still saw that there was additional regenerative benefits from the fasting mimicking diet. And they believe that that's probably a combination of that autophagy that I've mentioned a couple times now, but also the activation of stem cells. So we're really starting to get into this, and we're finally starting to see human trials. And this is, we're starting to scratch the surface now.
Wow, that's amazing. So as what I've learned in functional medicine, when any neurological system is hampered, it tends to have to do with mitochondria. And this process of autophagy is the body cleaning up old cells, but it's also the mitochondrial debris. So those mitochondria are getting a really good cleaning, like even more than that. They're getting like a whole body facelift. And they're just getting completely rejuvenated. And so with rejuvenated mitochondria comes rejuvenated neurological function.
Absolutely. And also energy and just, full body functionality. Our mitochondria do so much for our body. And they are in all of our cells, no matter what. So it's really cool to see, yes, neurologically, in fact, there's preclinical, so done in mice, but some early studies in Alzheimer's showing some really great regenerative capacity there. We see even just in survey data of thousands of fasting mimicking diet users, this change in kind of brain fog, in energy, in mental clarity that is self-reported, but still absolutely, more clinically relevant. So in terms of neurological health, we're seeing a lot of things. I also am prompted to think of the MS models that have been done. And in these models, mice that have lost their myelin sheath, this coating that is lost during multiple sclerosis, that is also regenerated with the fasting mimicking diet. So really, really incredible data starting to come out here.
Is there anyone who should not follow a fasting mimicking diet?
Absolutely, yes. So first, let me say that the vast majority of people are a great fit for the fasting mimicking diet. Whether you are healthy or not, there is opportunity here. But there are specific groups that we would call out as not a great fit. And that would be individuals with an allergies to nuts. And that's just because with the fasting mimicking diet, there are a lot of nuts included. Individuals who have a history of eating disorders, individuals who have muscle wasting, individuals who are pregnant or breastfeeding, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this one already, individuals under the age of 18, just because that's still a growth phase. And this is really meant to be a slow down on growth, let's repair.
What about people over the age of 65?
Great question. So with the inception of the L-Nutra health programs where they are medically managed, that the upper limit of age has been shifted up to about 90, even up to 95. The important thing to note in individuals over 65 is that one, you should be generally healthy. Like if you have late stage of any health condition, you absolutely want to first speak with your physician before moving forward. And of course, we want to make sure that there is good muscle tone. And once we hit the age of 65, and realistically, once you hit the age of 30, it starts being a lot easier to lose muscle mass. But certainly at the age of 65, this becomes especially an important consideration. So we want to make sure that muscle tone is strong enough and that is the first focus, that there's strong muscle. And then once that is in check, then moving into fasting mimicking as the cleanup and repair.
Okay, great. And so can you do it for less than 5 days?
Oh, this is a good question. Now, what we see with autophagy, and this has now been clinically validated with Prolon and the fasting mimicking diets coming out of L-Nutra, that autophagy, that deep cellular cleanup, is really maximized around that 3 and 4 day mark. The way that I look at it is it's going to take you 3 and up to 4 days to really activate this. Why stop there? Why, you've done this work to get here. Let your body live in it. It's kind of like that spring cleaning analogy. You start cleaning your house, you start getting into the groove of it. Oh, you're just going to stop right there. You've barely started spring cleaning. You maybe just did, a couple of hours. You need to take the whole weekend to make sure that you got inside all of those drawers. So it is important in terms of really getting the max benefit out of the protocol. Now, if you were to stop, I would say stopping around that 4 day mark would be the earliest I would recommend. But even I have a lot of people who, maybe they start their fasting mimicking diet on a Monday and Friday night rolls around and they have dinner planned and they say, well, Renee, can I just stop and can I have dinner tonight? I say, well, it's up to you, but you know that your sleep and not overnight would be adding at least 8 hours of really great cleanup. So, and that's the easiest time when you're sleeping. Everybody can fast when they're sleeping. So, I always push people to take advantage of the full 5 days and really, sink into it. But on the other side of that same coin is on day 6, please eat. Many people, I would say about 10%, I've walked thousands of people through fasting mimicking diets now, and I'd say about 10% of people will reach out to me and say, hey, Renee, I feel so good. I feel amazing. I just want to keep going. Can I keep fasting? I think I could do it. I'm coasting now. And I always remind people that the cleanup is important. But in this analogy of this spring cleaning, maybe your dining room table chairs were getting really raggedy, and one of the legs on one of them was about to fall off, and people kept complaining. Those are going to go as part of your spring cleaning. Now, when you are done your spring cleaning, you can't have no dining room chairs. You need to go replace them, and that is the refeeding part of this. You have to replace. You have to refeed, and that's just as much part of this process as the fasting. And again, as our earlier conversation alluded to, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, even with prolonged fasting. So I think 5 days is really that magical spot.
So we haven't really brought it up. It brings in something called ketosis. And the keto diet is something that has really caught on. So can you talk a little bit about what is ketosis and what does a fasting mimicking diet do to induce ketosis?
Oh, okay. I love this question. So ketosis, we briefly touched on it. It is the transition of our body. Once we use up all of the sugar in our body loves sugar. It's the easiest way to get energy. And so it will always go there first, but it doesn't have a lot of sugar or glucose storage. And so it really only has about 12 hours of that before it has to look elsewhere. And when it looks elsewhere, it goes to our fat cells because that's the next easiest source of energy for it. And it'll go to the fat cells and it will take from that to create ketones because it can't use fat necessarily. Fat won't cross our brain barrier, for example. It has to create ketones. That's a better way for it to use energy. So those ketones start floating around. And once we see an increase in those ketones, that's when we say that we are in ketosis. And that's the goal of the ketogenic diet. It limits sugar and it limits carbohydrates so that your body is forced to make ketones. Now, there are some benefits to that. Our brain does love using ketones. In fact, there's a lot of work being done in epilepsy and using ketogenic diets to support there. We're also seeing a lot of use of ketogenic diets in cancer protocols now because our cancer cells really do love that sugar. And so if we can limit it, we usually are priming our body better. So there are absolutely some good uses of the ketogenic diet, especially a plant-based ketogenic diet. But let me also share what the ketogenic diet lacks that fasting doesn't. Because when we go into a fasted state, yes, we're also limiting sugar and we're forcing our body to go to burn these fat for fuel. But what we do with ketosis is that we limit sugar, but we give plenty of protein. We give lots of fat too, but we also give a lot of protein. When I was talking about those cellular alarm bells, one of the biggest triggers of those cellular alarm bells to kick you out of a fasted state is protein. And so on a ketogenic diet, when you're having, sure, plenty of fat, but also a lot of protein, sure, you're going to get into the ketosis side of things, which has its benefits, but you will not trigger autophagy and that deep cellular cleanup. And so that's why I always like to make an important distinction that fasting turns on ketosis and there is some benefit to that. But fasting also turns on autophagy and deep cellular cleanup. And that is something that the ketogenic diet cannot do.
Really great information. And we've mentioned a few of these health conditions. You brought up cancer. I'd love to hear. I think it's new research, right?
There's a lot.
Yeah, cancer and the fasting mimicking diet helping with cancer treatments specifically.
Yeah, so interestingly, the fasting mimicking diet, the inception of it was actually for cancer patients because they were capturing the benefit of significant calorie restriction and fasting in oncology, but no physician wanted to put their patient with cancer on a fasting diet because they were worried that the patient would lose muscle mass, which is very important for those patients too. Mm-hmm. So there was this struggle. How do we get these benefits but still feed them? And that's really the inception of the fasting mimicking diet and where Walter really started his work and why now today there is so much research. And in fact, I would say the most research in oncology with fasting mimicking. A lot of it originally started in mice models. And now today we're finally seeing a lot of really great human data. And in fact, just recently, there was new research published on triple-negative breast cancer showing improved survival when fasting mimicking diet was paired with chemotherapy. And I want to be very clear here. This is not an alternative to chemotherapy or standard cancer treatment. In fact, some of the research shows that the fasting mimicking diet alone doesn't really seem to do anything. And then the chemotherapy or the typical therapies show some benefit. But then when paired, it increases. So it really is this combination effect, which is really incredible. So I think we're going to see a lot more research showing up here. It's really important to note that the fasting mimicking diets used in these trials are different than Prolon and even L-Nutra Health fasting mimicking diets. There's something called Xenogen or Chemo Leave. So they're unique fasting mimicking diets that are slightly different, still made by the L-Nutra family, but just slightly different. So make sure to work with a physician if this is something that you're exploring for cancer care.
Yeah, and so people can understand the science behind this. Cancer cells need glucose to live. So when you take the glucose out and you're living on fat or ketones, then the cancer cells starve and the person doesn't. And I've heard Dr. Longo talking about having someone do a fasting mimicking diet, and about day 3 is when they receive their chemotherapy. And then they have a few more days of fasting while the chemotherapy knocks out the cells and the cells aren't getting any glucose.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of the special fasting mimicking diets, they're actually, instead of being 5 days, they're 4. Mm-hmm. So we'll see them prime. And this is important that they're priming the body before chemotherapy, kind of starving those cancer cells before, so that they are especially vulnerable once the chemotherapy arrives. And so that's why they fast a little bit before, and then on the day of, and then occasionally on the day after. Another important thing that I will note too is that make sure to look into the research and see which cancers we're seeing results with, because every cancer is a little bit different. I've been seeing some interesting research on autophagy being good for some and not for others. And, just be cautious there. A lot of the research that's been done in fasting mimicking right now is in blood-borne cancers, in breast cancer. There's some prostate cancer. So just make sure that, also it's early, right?
Yeah, it's early. How about glioblastoma?
Nothing there that I have seen yet. Yeah. But, I wouldn't be surprised if it's coming. I think we're seeing this exponential growth now in this research because, previously it had to be, a lot of the funding is the hardest part to come by, right? Yeah. These are expensive things to do. And, pharmaceutical companies, they have such profit on the back end that it makes, they can invest millions, if not billions, into a given drug. Whereas, us lowly, nutrition and lifestyle support, we're doing the best we can, with what we've got. And now finally, because there's been such a great deal of research, universities, the NIH has invested $40 million in research in fasting mimicking. So we're getting the support that we need. I mean, not enough, still never enough, but enough that we're able to do a little bit more. And I think we're going to start seeing this just continue to skyrocket.
So fantastic and so exciting. And I'd like to ask you about perimenopause and menopause. What does the research show about this stage of life?
So we know that in this stage of life, we generally see hormones, especially estrogen, but also progesterone, kind of declining. Estrogen is so important for so many things. It's far more than just reproductive health that estrogen is playing a part in. Even men have estrogen. This is important, right? Estrogen is important for muscle protection. It's important also for blood sugar management. And so what we see when we enter into perimenopause is that as estrogen goes down, we also see muscle mass declining more rapidly than it was before. This is oftentimes why many women are confused as to why they are doing the same nutrition and same workout that they had been before, but they notice that weight is going up. And that's because when muscle goes down, our metabolism also goes down, and it is way easier to gain weight. So muscle is a big piece of that. And then I also mentioned that insulin sensitivity changing as well. And so what we see with fasting mimicking is, again, because it touches on so many things, it's able to really, expand across many different verticals. We see that there is muscle protection with weight loss. So as women entering into this phase of life, you want to make sure that any protocol that you are going to add into your routine is only supporting muscle protection with weight loss or just muscle growth. Those two, but not weight loss with muscle loss, because that's just going to send you into that vicious circle or vicious cycle. Now, we also see really incredible results on HbA1c, or your long-term measures of glucose management. We see incredible results on insulin resistance and improvements of insulin resistance, making you more insulin sensitive, meaning that you're better able to manage the sugar coming into your body. And so also kind of pushing back there. We also see really great results. A cool study came out that was done just in women, actually, on dermatology. And some people think, oh, how vain. But I like to remind people that our skin is made up entirely of cells and is a wonderful reflection of our health internally. Mm-hmm. It's how we see how we are, how healthy we are on the inside in many ways. And what we were able to show with that study was improvement in skin texture, improvement in fine lines, improvement in skin hydration. So, and that was done in women between the ages of 30 to 60. We also have seen, of course, I kind of hinted at this early on, a biological age changes. So with just 3 cycles, so 3 5-day cycles done once a month for 3 months in a row, we were able to show an improvement in biological age by 2.5 years. In the world of longevity nutrition, any intervention that is able to cause that significant of a biological age shift is really impressive. And to the point, and this is not something that has been clinically studied, but I mentioned I've walked a lot of people through the fasting mimicking diet, and I've heard from a number of women now that even after they've entered into menopause, they maybe are kind of just entering into menopause, they notice that their cycle actually comes back after a few rounds of fasting mimicking diet. Now, this is, it's few and far between, but I think it's just really cool at thinking about how this really does kind of shift the clock back a little bit in terms of that biological age, in terms of that cellular age, and in terms of that cellular cleanup. So really, really lots of ways that it can help women in this time.
Yeah, reducing inflammation. And another thing that I see, Renee, with women gaining weight is when the hormone levels fall, the cortisol levels go up. Like the adrenals start to take over. And if the adrenals have not been well cared for that woman's entire life, it starts to get really rough. And there's a lot of dysregulation that happens. So this is such a good tool that I'm exploring right now for myself. And I'm really looking forward to extending it to my patients. Yeah, to help them with their journeys.
Absolutely. Well, I know I work with a lot of naturopathic OBGYNs and even now, actually, interestingly, a lot of your more standard OBGYNs leveraging fasting mimicking in their female patients for a number of reasons. We're also seeing some cool early research coming out in PCOS too with fasting, but leveraging the fasting mimicking diet specifically because of the reduced stress on the body and because of the muscle protection and because of the added security and safety that comes with fasting mimicking that a standard water-only fasting protocol just would not offer. So I know a lot of them wouldn't even dare putting their patients on a water-only fasting, but love fasting mimicking.
Exactly. So I wish that we could just chat all afternoon.
I know. Me too.
How can people find you? Tell us more about where you show up.
Absolutely. I would say the fastest way to reach me is through Instagram. You can DM me directly there at Fitton Nutrition. That's Fitton Nutrition. I also have a website at fittonnutrition.com. If you have questions about the fasting mimicking diet, I would urge you to check out one of 2 sites. One, if you are more into longevity and you might need a little bit of weight loss, or you're looking into you're generally a healthy person, then Prolon is probably the best fit for you. And that's at prolonlife.com, Prolon life.com. And then if you are interested in more of that metabolic support, then you have type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, etc., I would urge you to check out the L Nutra Health. That's L-Nutra, Nutra, health.com. fitton.com.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad it worked out. And honestly, it is a pure coincidence that I am on day 3 of the fasting mimicking diet and Renee is here today in Sedona and that I asked her for an interview. All of those are independent factors.
It is truly incredible, and I think that just shows that it's the universe working in our favor. It was meant to be, and the audience was meant to hear this today.
Yes, agreed. So thank you, and we will be right back after these messages.
We'll be right back with more Rooted in Healing right after these commercial messages. And now, more Rooted in Healing with Dr. Beth Claxton.
Thank you for tuning in today. We've been talking with Renee Fitton, who's a longevity dietitian and the director of education at El Nutra. She spoke today on the fasting mimicking diet, and I think that we all have a lot to take home and think about. And if you're interested in doing Prolon, the fasting mimicking diet, and you want some guidance, please tune in to me. Send me a message or become a patient at bethclaxtonmd.com. I would love to help guide you through that. Next week, we're going to hear from Kelly Kennedy. And I've been really excited to talk to Kelly because there is so much unknown about her field that is unknown in the normal medical field, because she is a lymph and fascia specialist. And there is a lot that happens at the level of the lymph and the fascia where energy is stored that can lead to imbalances. So I'm very excited to talk to Kelly next week. You have been listening to Rooted in Healing. I'm Dr. Beth Claxton, and this is KAZM 106.5 FM, 780 AM. Until next time, keep finding that which makes you feel vibrant.
For more information on Dr. Beth Claxton, visit bethclaxtonmd.com.